3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hello guys, what is up and welcome back to the Sports Shift with me, Ian Marquez. After a little break, Premier League action is back. So much to talk about, so much key points to break down. Let's get started. So here are our fixtures. Brighton at home to Chelsea, Leicester at home to Arsenal, then have Aston Villa hosting Ipswich, Nottingham Forest travel to London to face Fulham, Man City welcome Newcastle, big game there. Bournemouth travel to the neighbours, Southampton. West Ham hosts another London club in Brentford. Crystal Palace welcome Everton. Liverpool welcome Wolves. And finally, Man United travel to London to face Spurs. So without wasting any time, here are my predictions. Well, to start it off, we have Chelsea travelling to the south coast to play Brighton. Brighton recently victorious over Chelsea, knocking them out the FA Cup. So now Chelsea only have the Conference League and perhaps a Champions League spot in the Premier League to focus on. I think Chelsea do get their revenge away from home. I know Brighton played really well and it was a well-deserved victory over Chelsea, but Brighton have been very susceptible in the Premier League, as can be seen in the rematch where Chelsea completely obliterated them. I think Chelsea do the damage here. Palmer back in action and Nkunku will be replacing Jackson. I think they just have too much firepower. Brighton have been weak defensively, and I think their Premier League form holds true and Chelsea take away the 3 points. Kicking off Saturday's games, Arsenal travel to Leicester. Arsenal have been hit by the injury bug. That is no exaggeration. In recent weeks, so many of their key players have gone down, like Gabriel Jesus, no Odegaard, no Saka. And now, after a training session in Dubai during the little break, Kai Havertz has had a serious hamstring injury and will be out for the rest of the season. That leaves 3 attacking players available for Arsenal: Nwaneri, Raheem Sterling, and Leandro Trossard. Trossard is quality, and Nwaneri has had bright flashes. He's looked really aggressive and stuff. But that leaves Raheem Sterling leading the line for Arsenal through the middle. I don't know what to expect. I do think he'll chip in with a goal or 2, but I think it's going to be very dismal. And I think Arsenal are going to be relying on their defense and potentially their corner routines again in order to save them and leave the Midlands with 3 points. Moving on swiftly, coming off a huge FA Cup win against Spurs. Ipswich also still in the FA Cup, so both teams have that to play for. Aston Villa through to the next round of the Champions League that will be taking place soon. And Ipswich fighting to get out the bottom 3. A lot to play for in this game. I do think Aston Villa take 3 points. They have made a barrage of January transfers, as well as letting John Duran go. He's already off to a flying start in Saudi Arabia. We're bringing in Marcus Rashford, Marcos Asensio, Daniel Malin, among others, and I really like the business Aston Villa did in this window. I think that depth is going to be really vital near the end of the season. I know Watkins has had some injury issues. He should be good to go this weekend, but they do have players that can fill those roles. They also have players that are already there, like Leon Bailey, Morgan Rogers, that have been playing really well this season. And I really like what Aston Villa is doing. I think they'll win this one comfortably against Ipswich, and they'll be having a make-up game against Liverpool later on due to Liverpool's Carabao Cup final in a couple of weeks. Heading to London now, Fulham host Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest continue their high-flying season in a Champions League spot. Chris Wood fresh off a hat-trick. They had a tough win that they held on for in the FA Cup, but I don't think it's as easy. Fulham have been very stingy defensively. Not an easy team to break down. Nottingham Forest don't create a lot. I think it's going to be a very cagey chess match, and I think it ends in a 1-1 draw. If I had to pick a team to edge it, it would probably be Forest, just because they're on that momentum and they believe that they can do anything. But I think they get a little bit of a letdown back to reality, and it's a tight, hard-fought draw. Man City hosts Newcastle. What can I say? Newcastle are in the Carabao Cup final. They are in a great position in the league, fighting for a Champions League spot. They are still in the FA Cup, and Man City are all over the place. They barely held on for a win against Leyton Orient. What can Newcastle do? A lot of people overthink this and think it's City. You can't write off City. City's are going to bounce back. It always happens. But if you just look at the evidence, look at recent form, recent performances, there's no way that Newcastle should not be favored in this game, and you shouldn't bet against Newcastle. I mean, they have Isaac, one of the most prolific strikers in the league, and he's going against Haaland, but the support system around Isaac right now is just so much better, both defensively and going forward. In terms of the midfield matchup, Newcastle win that really easily. Joelinton's on his way back. Then we have Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes going against the likes of Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne, who just don't have the legs to cover that ground anymore. It leaves Kovacic really isolated and exposed in the middle of the park. And I think Newcastle are just so solid and they have such a great structure that they're just going to be too difficult to break down. And they do have the quality up front, the likes of Gordon, Isaac, Jacob Murphy's been playing really well. The wing backs love to get forward as well. I don't see how Man City win this one. Newcastle just have too much quality around, and Man City will probably rely on individual brilliance from the likes of Haaland or Foden. I do think they'll score, but I think Newcastle come away with 3 points, and more questions remain for Man City, who will then have to travel to Real Madrid and win at the Bernabeu in order to stay in the Champions League. Now we head to bottom place Southampton, battle of the South Coast, as they welcome Bournemouth. Bournemouth have been in flying form. A tough defeat to Liverpool. They had a few chances, including Kluivert missing an open goal. They hit the post a couple of times, and in the end, Liverpool were inevitable. They took their chances, as Bournemouth didn't, which has been the story for most of the season. Makes it really impressive that Bournemouth is doing so well if they struggle to score, yet they create so many chances that eventually they'll score enough, you know? I don't think they have any issues here. I think, although it's a rivalry and they have a little bit of history, just their location, I do think Bournemouth get the job done. Whether it's Dango Ouattara filling at striker, Semenyo, Kluivert, just have slightly too much quality going forward. They play that aggressive front foot football, and Southampton like to play themselves into trouble playing up the back. So I think that plays in Bournemouth's favour as well. Look for a quick turnover high up the field, and probably a quick goal, and I think they run route. I'm looking at like 4-love or something like that. So if you're playing any fantasy, now is a great time to get those Bournemouth players in, man. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Target Southampton. West Ham hosting Brentford. This is really interesting because West Ham have looked slightly better under Graham Potter. They're still a little inconsistent. Brentford away from home, we know they're usually pretty solid, but they don't create as much as they do at home. So that's going to be another interesting feature. How that plays out. I do think Brentford just have too much quality as well. I know West Ham just signed Evan Ferguson. Is he going to start? Is he going to hit the ground running? Or are they going to rely on ever-present Jared Bowen, Mohamed Kudus as well, who always has that flair, that goal in him? I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. It's going to be pretty cagey. Probably low scoring, even though these teams both known to let in goals as well as score goals. But I think it's just going to be really respectful and focused on not conceding. And I do have Brentford edging it away from home. Crystal Palace at home to Everton. Well, Crystal Palace have been in good form. They remain in the FA Cup as well, a win over the weekend. Meanwhile, Everton came off the back of that makeup fixture against Liverpool, which was postponed earlier in the season. And they hosted Liverpool for the final Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. What a game that was. Everton scored early. Liverpool equalised in no time at all. Then Mo Salah, as is inevitable, with a late goal that everyone thought would be the winner. They thought Everton were finished, Everton couldn't fight back. But what happens? 98th minute, James Tarkowski with an absolute rocket into the top corner. Fans began rushing the field, limbs everywhere. It was amazing to watch. That's what football is all about. And what a way to end the final Merseyside derby. Interesting fact for you. They have played 123 Merseyside derbies at Goodison Park. There have been 41 wins for either side and 41 draws. How bizarre is that? Isn't that crazy? Well, Everton made sure that the last game did not end in defeat and they held on for a draw. But I think it's a bit of a letdown spot as they travel to Crystal Palace. I mean, obviously everyone's going to be high on that point against Liverpool. It was very impressive. Huge emotion. They had some red cards. I know they're going to be without Decore. But I think it's a bit of a letdown spot. Crystal Palace are a tough team. I know Crystal Palace tend to fare better away from home on the counter-attack. But I think they just edge it. Maybe a 2-1, 2-0. And Mateta's been in fine form. So I think they just about edge it. But Everton have looked a lot better under David Moyes, man. I'm very impressed. They're very difficult to break down. They play structured, and they do offer quite a bit on the counter attack. So beware of Everton as they'll start to climb the table. Following on Sunday, league leaders Liverpool host Wolves. On the other side, Liverpool are going to be pretty distraught that they let that lead slip against Everton. They would have been 9 points clear from Arsenal with only 14 games left to play, and it would have been pretty difficult to see anyone catching them. Well, that's come down to 7 points. I think they take out that aggression, that anger, that vengeance on Wolves. It's going to be pretty unfair. I'm seeing at least 3-4-0. I think Salah gets 2 goals at least. Wouldn't be surprised if he walked away with a hat-trick. And I also think they leave with a clean sheet. I just think they're going to be like, all right, we need to put an end to this. It's time to increase the gap at the top so we can focus on Champions League. And I think that is exactly what they will do. So I expect a lot of goals. Speaking of goals, Spurs welcome Manchester United to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. 2 teams that are in absolute shambles. Which team is worse? I mean, I don't even know. Man United can't buy a goal. They struggle to score. They struggle to create. They rely on individual brilliance from either Bruno, Garnacho, or Ahmad. They can't decide who their striker is. Is it Højlund? Is it Zirkzee? Neither person has claimed that spot as theirs, and it's pretty dismal in terms of the defense. I mean, they have good defenders, but they don't really defend as a team. It's usually individual mistakes, whether it's Onana, whether it's set pieces. Apparently, United is the worst set piece side in the Premier League. I don't know how that happens. Everyone seems to find it so easy to take set pieces against United. So where do they go from there? I mean, Ugarte has been really good in the middle of the park. Ahmad has been a bright spot this season. I think Bruno has been subpar for most of the season, to be honest, although he hasn't had much help. But at some point, he has to do it himself, you know? In terms of our defense, Maguire's been good most of the time, especially in that central role. On the left of him, we've had Martinez, but now Martinez is out. I don't know when Shaw is actually going to be back. You know how Luke Shaw does it. Mazraoui at centre back, I don't think he's been too bad, but he hasn't been up to his standard in recent weeks. Dalot just runs about everywhere. And in terms of Dorgu, we haven't really seen much of him. I don't know why he played on the right instead of the left. I'd like to see him on the left. I'd like to see him link up with Garnacho. So I don't know what Man United are going to offer, which Man United is going to show up. I have no idea. But on the other side, it's Spurs. I mean, Spurs have been so shambolic. Now they lost it out of the FA Cup. They let a 1-0 lead in the Carabao Cup slip at the hand of Liverpool, so now they're out of every competition. Unless they win Europa League, they're going to go trophyless. Although Ange says that he always wins in his second season. I love to see that. But good news for them is they do have quite a few players returning from injury. And they have Vicario, Maddison, Udogie, all first-team players that will terrorize Man United will be returning and will be available for this game. So what to expect? Expect goals for both teams. I mean, both defenses have been shambolic. Both teams have lacked character, fight, aggression. I expect goals for both teams. And who can tease the most? I have no idea. I went for Spurs because they're at home, and usually they do tend to get the best of Manchester teams, whether it's United or City. So wouldn't be surprised if it ends either way. A draw, United win, Spurs win. I just think it's going to be a terrible game. Hate that I'm a United fan and I have to watch it, but here we are. Maybe we should make some money on it. Let's look at some stats first. So here we have a breakdown of the matchups. Based on your matchup, your expected goals, your chance of a clean sheet. Usual suspects at the top. Liverpool, Aston Villa, Arsenal, Bournemouth, Man City, all expected to score 2 goals. A lot of these teams are facing relegation teams or relegation threatened teams, except for the likes of Man City, who are facing Newcastle. So that's pretty impressive that they're expected to score 2 goals. On the flip side, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Arsenal, all expected to keep a clean sheet. No surprise there. The amount of goals they're expected to score, the likelihood of the other team scoring, pretty rare. So all these teams are pretty safe for a win. And if you look towards the bottom of the table, you will find the likes of Ipswich, Wolves, Leicester, all expected to concede. I mean, that Leicester thing is a little interesting considering Arsenal are so injury stricken up front. But I still do expect Arsenal to find the net somehow. So after looking at those odds, the likelihood of scoring, it's pretty easy to determine which games are the best matchup. And then you'll have to just take the best players from each team. So For the likes of Liverpool, obviously Mo Salah is expected to score for sure. Haaland from City, no surprise there. And then Aston Villa, we have Watkins, Rashford, and Malen. That is a little interesting. It should have asterisks. Those odds are because Watkins was at risk of injury and not playing. But I think Rashford and Malen's chances go down significantly since Watkins is available and most likely will play against Ipswich. We then have Gakpo, who's also nursing a slight injury, so it's unlikely that he starts against Wolves, so just be mindful of that. Isaac is in fine form. I mean, no matter the opposition, he's expected to score. Man City are by no means the strongest defense these days, so no surprise there. And Kluivert against bottom of the league Southampton. Bournemouth have been full of goals. Kluivert is on penalties, so pretty safe bet there. A lot of options to choose from. Why don't we see who I've chosen? So here are my picks. Well, if we're gonna look at the goal scorers, Mo Salah is inevitable. He's placing a struggling Wolves team. I think there are gonna be so many goals, and I think there's a little chance that Mo Salah misses out on this feast. Definitely get 10 of the goals. Yohan Wissa is one of the players with some of the most chances in the Premier League in recent game weeks. He's been very unlucky to score. Been very unlucky not to score in recent weeks. But I think that comes to an end against West Ham. You know West Ham are susceptible. Brentford love to play on the counter. They'll probably have Shad and way more wide, serving Wissa, and I think Wissa finds a net with 1, maybe 2 goals. The long shot is Haaland. I mean, Haaland's always viable for a goal. It's just that they're playing a very strong and solid Newcastle defense. But Haaland only needs 1 chance to score, so I'm never too afraid to put Haaland in there. In terms of yellow cards, I have Pedro Porro and Ugarte, who will face off against each other. Both teams are known for taking a cynical foul in transition, whether it's the likes of Garnacho or Ahmad that is attacking Pedro Porro. I mean, both are very skillful, very fast. Pedro Porro loves to get caught up the field, so I wouldn't be surprised if they get goal side to Pedro Porro and he just takes one for the team. Similarly to Ugarte, he just racks up so many tackles and inevitably so many fouls that eventually they'll accumulate and he'll get a yellow card, so I wouldn't be surprised if both of them get a yellow card. Carlos Baleba against Chelsea. I mean, Baleba's a bit rash, a bit reckless. He's very skillful on the ball, but sometimes he loses the ball in tight positions. Chelsea love to play intricate passes around the box, the likes of Palmer and Nkunku, Madueke. It's very possible that this takes a little nibble, the likes of Palmer or whatnot, and in a dangerous position, maybe in transition, I can definitely see a yellow card coming. In terms of my prime picks, well, we're going with Arsenal, Liverpool, and Bournemouth, all playing relegation-threatened teams. That's the likes of Leicester, Wolves, Southampton, and then we have Brentford playing West Ham. This one's a little riskier because Brentford away from home have not always been too reliable, but I think they just have a little more quality, and I do think they'll be able to overcome West Ham. So there you have it. Those are my predictions. Let me know what you guys think. Are you tagging along? Are you going against me? Let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel as we continue to grow this community. Otherwise, enjoy this weekend's action and see you guys later.